Hi, welcome back to the Fit Refresh. My name is Sarah Martinez and I'm a health coach. I help professional yo-yo dieters create a healthy, long-lasting relationship with food and fitness. Today, our topic is one that's a little touchy for a lot of my clients and probably a lot of you guys watching, and it's the subject of cheese. The question today, why should I limit my cheese? Let's do it. All right, before we get started, just really quick, subscribe to my channel, of course, like this video so that I know that you're enjoying the content. And of course, I always encourage you to ask questions. So let's get right into the subject matter. Why should I limit cheese? As you can notice, I put a little bit of a angry face there, and that's because most of my clients and most actually people I talk to about eating habits tend to admit that cheese is the one thing that's very hard to cut out or change the habit of. This video is not about vilifying cheese, so don't worry, please continue watching. I'm not going to tell you all the horrible things about cheese, but I am going to help you understand how to look for the cheese that's going to do the most benefit for you, and also how to approach cheese in your diet if you're looking to lose weight. The truth is, I always preach moderation. Now, some of you guys might be about to start a clean eating challenge with me, or you've been considering doing a clean eating challenge. And on those challenges, I do eliminate cheese. Why? Not because we can never have it again, but because it's important to find alternatives so that cheese isn't in every single meal, every single day of every single week. You want to make sure that you're eating something in moderation. So the key is trying to find things that you can kind of substitute for it. And sometimes the best way to figure that out, take it away altogether so that you're forced to figure it out. That's the idea of eliminating cheese during my clean challenges. Towards the end of my challenges, I always encourage clients on ways to incorporate cheese back in without letting it overtake every meal again. For today's purpose, though, I really want to push the idea of just moderation. I think the best way to start off this is just literally talking about how cheese is made, because I think it's just this kind of amazing, like, cheese just exists. Well, it goes through a process. Step number one, prepare the milk. So usually they'll want to kind of pasteurize the milk before it gets turned into cheese, so that way it kills off any of the bad organisms. And so the milk is heated up and then cooled down to a specific temperature. Step number two, they need to acidify the milk. So back in the day, we just kind of let the milk start to create its own lactic acid on its own, which makes it start to curdle. Well, these days they add acids to the milk to start to produce that curdling effect a lot quicker. Step number three, curdling the milk. So once they've added the acid, it starts to speed up the process, but now they want to add some more elements to make that curdling start to happen a lot faster. So they usually use an element called rennet. Now, this is found typically, it's an enzyme that's found in the stomach of animals that chew very slowly, and their body processes the food at a very slow rate. So typically animals that have multiple chambers in their stomach. So one of the most popular ones that gets used is cows. Adding that element to the milk will help to start to break down and curdle the milk faster. Step number four, cutting the curd. So now they'll go in and they'll actually cut the curds that are forming, and the more you cut it, the harder the cheese will be, but the less they cut it, the softer the cheese will be. Step five, processing the curd. So now they're going to wash away some of the whey and then bring it in, depending on what kind of cheese they're trying to produce. They'll also heat it up and cool it off so that it creates different textures as well. Step number six, they're going to drain the whey. So the whey is going to be the extra excess liquid that gets separated from the curd. They're going to drain that away so that all they have are the solid chunks of curd. Step number seven is cheddaring the curd, is what they call it. And so what they do here is they're just going to cut into that curd and just release as much whey and liquid as possible. And depending on how hard or soft they want the cheese, they'll continue this process to achieve their desired type of cheese. Step number eight, they're going to salt the cheese. So adding salt to cheese is going to help bring out some of its own natural flavors. They can also add other seasonings at this point too. So if you find a cheese that has like a little bit more of a pepper flavor, so they can add other seasonings at this stage to help kind of bring out the already natural flavor that the cheese is going to bring. Step number 9 is going to be shaping the cheese. So putting it into the molds that they want it to be in when they sell it to you. And then step number 10 is going to be aging the cheese. So there are certain cheeses that, they age for a lot longer, especially some of the harder cheeses. So in those cases, they'll age them for whatever period of time they want to age them for, and then they package them up and put them out on the market for you. So now you might be saying, okay, well, so this is how all cheese is made? Well, yeah, so this is like the general process for the origination of the cheese. If you want to have the freshest possible cheese, you're gonna have cheese that's towards the beginning of that whole 10-step process. So it's gonna be the cheeses that are softer, it's gonna be the cheeses that are essentially the only color cheese really is white, off-white, and maybe slightly yellow, and that really just depends on what kind of animal gave the milk that the cheese is being made out of. So your freshest cheeses are going to be very mild in flavor, mild in salt, and you're going to typically be looking at like ricotta, feta, mozzarella. All right, let's talk about processed cheese. So this is where the line gets a little fuzzy, because cheese, typically, if it's made in a natural way, has a lot of great benefits, which we'll talk about the pros and cons in just a moment. But in its freshest form, cheese is actually very beneficial. The problem is to make cheese last longer, to make it so it won't go bad as quickly, and also to make the flavors consistent. Companies have taken the fresh cheese that is made, melted it down, and added other ingredients to it. So they add ingredients to make it colored a certain way. They add ingredients to, again, make the flavor profile a certain way, or make the cheese last longer. So a lot of the cheese you buy at the grocery store down the aisle can actually be processed with a lot of other bad enzymes, chemicals, elements, more sodium, more fat, to make the cheese a worse item for your body. Processed American cheese in the United States legally is required to have 90% real cheese in it. So 90% real cheese. It's actually higher than I thought it was going to be when I started doing the research. I thought it was going to be a lot less than that. But that being said, the other 10% can kind of be whatever they want to make it flavored or look whatever way they're trying to make it look. So just know that processed cheese is very specific standard guidelines. If something is labeled cheese food, it can have as low as 51% real cheese in it. Most of the time, they say it's about 65%, but the rest of that can be made out of whatever they need to, flavor-wise or artificial-wise, to give you what you're eating. Cheese spread is another thing you'll see on packaging, and legally, they only have to have 51% actual real cheese in anything labeled cheese spread. If you see something labeled cheese product, or maybe diet cheese, you can pretty much be rest assured that whatever that item is mostly water, and there's a very low standard amount of cheese actually in that product. And then last but not least, imitation cheese. Well, I think this one pretty much stands for itself. Imitation cheese has no requirement to have any type of actual real cheese in their product. Mostly it could be ground down flavoring that's being put into their product. So these are all the terminologies you might want to become familiar with so that when you're choosing cheese, you make sure you know what you're eating. That is the key. So I promised you, I'm not going to vilify cheese today. Cheese is great. There's so many great qualities about cheese, and if you're eating it on the fresh side or at least limiting your intake, you're going to get a lot of great benefits from it. It's a great source of calcium. It's a great source of vitamin D. You can also, I didn't actually put this on this list, but it's also a great form of protein. So if you're, somebody who needs to up your protein intake, it's a great assist to be able to do that with certain meals. It's a healthy fat, especially if you get it done, if you actually buy the cheese that's in the healthy form. So the freshest cheese possible can be a healthy form of fat. So cheese can offer a lot of great healthy things for your body when it's used in the right way. However, we need to talk about the cons to truly understand why it should be limited in your diet. So especially if your goal is weight loss, there's a couple of things that cheese does or has in it that makes it very hard to achieve weight loss at a nice steady pace if you're eating too much of it. First of all, it's high in saturated fats. Saturated fats are the not so good fats. You don't want a bunch of those, okay? So saturated fats are the ones you want to kind of avoid as much as possible. It doesn't mean you can't have them, but it does mean that you need to limit them. So cheese, high in saturated fats. very dense calorie food, all right? Cheese in general is a dense calorie food. So an ounce of cheese is going to be actually a very small amount of cheese because it is heavy. And that small amount of cheese is going to pack a big calorie punch. So to actually have enough cheese to be able to satiate the taste you're looking for means you're probably going to bring in a bunch of calories for it. Usually, especially the cheeses that are having a lot of additives put in them, you're going to look at them, they're high in sodium, they're going to be high in extra fat, sugar, added stuff that they're going to put in the cheese to make it more desirable and edible for you. However, all of those things are going to pull you back from your weight loss goals. So let me be clear. I'm not saying cut cheese out of your life, don't ever have it again. Now, if you're doing one of my clean challenges, I've got one coming up in October, and I also do them throughout the year, then we do eliminate it just to know that we can create an atmosphere where there are other options on the table. When the thing is over, my recommendation, definitely have cheese in your life. Cheese is a great additive to maybe a little bit on a salad, or, you know, maybe you're going to have a piece of pizza every once in a while. It just happens, right? But you want to make sure that cheese is in that 20% category in your life. So I always try to, you know, push the 80-20 rule with all my clients. 80% of the time, you want to be focusing on healthy, clean eating. 20% of the time, have your piece of pizza, you know, do what you need to do, have your cheese. But make sure that that 20% of the time is where the cheese lies in your life. So if you're looking at your meals, every single meal has cheese on your plate, then you might be the person I'm talking to on how to pull it back, try to figure out other alternatives than cheese in every single meal. So ways to keep your cheeses healthy. Well, first of all, try to make sure that you are getting the healthiest cheese possible on the market. That means you might have to do a little research. I know. Means you're going to have to read your labels and make sure that you're seeing the items that are in your cheese. Essentially, on your cheese, it should just be cheese. If you're reading your labels, it should just be very minimal ingredients. If you're seeing a lot of weird names that you can't pronounce, it's probably a cheese that you should probably cut out altogether. So finding a healthier version or healthier options for cheeses is going to be a huge, huge plus. Some cheese alternatives to think about, which are very popular, especially amongst those that are vegan, vegetarian, who are trying to cut back on dairy, or maybe just people who are have an intolerance to dairy, which is actually more people than you might think. One of the great alternatives is cashew and nutritional yeast. So cashews soaked overnight, blended with nutritional yeast, will create a very creamy texture that you can use in lieu of, you know, any kind of cheesy sauces or dips for, you know, your carrots or whatever other item you're eating. So that's a great, you know, cheesy substitute. The other great substitute too is tahini. So tahini is a fat, and when mashed down and created, it's from originally from sesame seed. When it's mashed down and created, it has a very pasty texture. So mixed with the right mix of a healthy avocado oil and some seasonings, it can also be a very creamy texture that you can add and use to get that creamy, savory taste instead of actually using cheese. So there's lots of really great suggestions on ways to still enjoy that creamy, yummy, saucy feel that you get from cheese, but actually eliminate the dairy from your diet. Well, as usual, it's been a pleasure. If you have any questions, you want to check out the programs I have running right now, go to my website. You can also follow me on social media and say hi, or leave a comment down below at the bottom of this video so that I have, you know, a fighting chance to be able to help you out if I can. I'm trying to give out as much free content as I can to help you through whatever hurdles you're jumping, but just know that getting yourself into clean eating habits and long-term healthy relationship with food and fitness, it takes consistency, and sometimes you just need someone to hold your hand through it, and that's what I do for a living. So feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'll see you next week with a new topic.